Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. Now, what are companion videos? Well, I'm glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take the second half of our show to take live comments and questions that get sent in by you guys, the viewers. However, we don't always have enough time to get around to all of the live comments and questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure those questions get answered properly in a video, and so we address them here on companion videos. Now, normally, what happens is we'll do a companion video when we need to on the weekends as we get back up. But what happened is, you guys know you can send in those live comments and questions actually anytime 24/7 using the tip link. That's streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. And this weekend, over the weekend, we had so many live questions get sent in. We didn't even get through half of them on the John Campea Show today. So instead of falling behind an awful lot, I thought, why don't we do a companion here on Monday so that way we get all caught up. So that's what we're going to do. And by the way, big thank you to all you guys who did send in those live comments and questions using the tip link, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about here, but also because in doing so, you supported this show, and all of us here, thank you so much for that. So with that being said, let's dive right into it and start getting caught up, shall we? We're going to start things off here with Loki Doki, I love that name, who writes, do you think Ruffalo is still going to be his Professor Hulk form when he appears on She-Hulk? That's a great question, because we all know She-Hulk is coming. We know Tatiana, the good Canadian girl, is going to be playing the lead. And we know that Mark Ruffalo is going to appear in it. But will he appear as Mark Ruffalo? Or will he, you know, as Bruce? Or is he still going to be in his Professor Hulk kind of form? My guess is he's going to be in his Professor Hulk form. I hope he's not. Listen, I got to admit, as much as I loved Endgame, I wasn't a big fan of the whole Professor Hulk thing. It prevented us from getting the Hulk that we all really wanted. And so even though I love the character and I thought he had some great lines in it, time travel, there was some really, really great moments. And I love Mark Ruffalo. I hope by the time we get to She-Hulk that we get Banner. And by the way, we don't even know exactly when in time the She-Hulk series is taking place. Does it happen before the dusting? Or the blink, as I think as they call it? Will it happen in between the events of Infinity War and Endgame? Will it happen in quote-unquote current time, which is after the events of Endgame? Not really sure. I assume it's going to be in quote-unquote current time after Endgame. So I hope we see him as Mark Ruffalo, but I'm not really sure at this point. I got a feeling he's still going to be in his Professor Hulk form. We'll find out soon, though. All right, next up. Kant2 writes, we just need to know for them to buy the rights. We just need to now for them to buy the rights to Stephen King's Dark Tower series. I was disappointed with the movie, and considering the actors who were involved, which is, you know, was Stephen King's answer to Lord of the Rings. Keep up the great work. Yeah, I mean, the Dark Tower, I did not hate the movie. It felt kind of like a bit of a mess. There was a lot of good stuff in it, though, that I enjoyed watching. And I thought the performances were all good. I thought the performances were all pretty solid and pretty good, but it did feel disjointed. Like they weren't quite sure what they were doing with it. So it'll be interesting to see if they take another go at it as they move further ahead. All right, anonymous viewer writes, prediction. In the opening scene of Lightyear, that's of course going to be the Toy Story spinoff, we see the toys sneak into a movie theater to watch the same movie, and Rex complains about the excessive amounts of movie trailers. Wouldn't that be great? So listen, one of the things they could do, because remember, in talking about Lightyear, one of the things that they said that I thought was great was this Lightyear toy is based on a character, a kid's character that they make these movies and everything out of, Buzz Lightyear, Space Ranger, right? Well, what if we actually look at that movie that the Buzz Lightyear toy is based on? And so wouldn't it be great if they did start Lightyear with the Toy Story toys sneaking into a movie theater to see Buzz's movie? I think that would be pretty cool. All right, next up, Orange Hand writes, rewatch the latest Jumanji movie. Remember toward the end, it was revealed that the villain was an avatar with strengths and weaknesses. Dwayne Johnson said the next film will explore that aspect. By the way, Karen Gillan looks damn fine in winter clothes. Look, let's be honest here. Karen Gillan looks damn fine regardless. Like, she looks damn fine as Nebula. I mean, you put her in anything, she looks great because, you know, she's just one of the most beautiful creatures, male or female, to be walking the face of the earth. Not to mention she's damn talented too. The second Jumanji movie is an interesting one to me because that first Jumanji movie was such a surprise. Like, because it's Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart and Jack Black and Karen Gillan, I expected it to be fun. I didn't realize how much fun that first Jumanji movie would be. I was completely enthralled with it. I loved it. It was so entertaining. So I went with pretty high expectations. Like, going into the second movie, I had the opposite experience that I had with the first. First one had super low expectations. Well, not super low, but modest expectations, and I was blown away. The second Jumanji film with The Rock and Kevin Hart, I went in with much, much higher expectations. And while I enjoyed the second Jumanji, like, no, seriously, I give it thumbs up. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I didn't like it nearly as much as I liked the first one. I still liked it. Glad I saw it. Was entertained by it. But I didn't have that same experience that I had with the first one. So it's going to be interesting whether they, kind of exploring the villain aspect, whether they're exploring, what happens at the end of Jumanji with the Jumanji creatures coming into the real world, whatever direction they go. I just hope they're able to somehow recapture that magic pixie dust that the first film just had. That I found the second one, while good, and the Danny DeVito, Danny Glover stuff I thought was all great. Awkwafina. That was all really good. It just didn't have that same magic the first one did. Let's see how they round out with the third one, Orange Hand. All right. Opposite of Darth Plagueis writes. I like that username. One of two. I disagree with the idea that there is too much lineage in Star Wars. I would like the Kenobi series to have a several centuries flashback where we meet the first Jedi Kenobi and see Ben's home planet. Maybe the Kenobis were almost never Jedi. To me, where they screwed up in The Rise of Skywalker was not making Rey Palpatine's niece, granddaughter actually. I'm tired of stormtroopers. Do you think we will get at least one show without them, like The Phantom Menace? Yeah, we'll get, definitely we will. I mean, we're already like Acolyte. There's no stormtroopers around. Look, every movie like Star Wars has cannon fodder soldiers. Whether they're stormtroopers or something else, every big adventure movie has a bad guy that has stormtrooper-like cannon fodder soldiers, whether they're stormtroopers or whether we call them something else, right? So as soon as we move out of this particular timeline, like once we get into the High Republic, maybe even further back into Old Republic, or as we move forward past the events of The Rise of Skywalker, there should be no need to have stormtroopers anymore. So we're probably going to get beyond them pretty quick. I'm tired of lineage, seriously, in all storytelling. Like, so-and-so must be the daughter of a great king. She must be a secret princess. He's descended from the great Norse gods. Like, everybody has to be lineage. And I get it. It's a standard Hollywood trope to use, and it's been used very effectively at times, for sure. It's just that it's always done. And so I kind of got sick of it, especially once we had The Force Awakens, right? And everybody started to speculate about Rey. And it's like, really? She has to be the daughter of somebody, or she has to be the princess of the descendant of this. She has to be from a long lineage. Like, that was ridiculous. The other thing is this, is remember, in the prequels, they laid out, Jedi don't come from lineage, right? First of all, Jedis aren't even allowed to hook up and have kids. But beyond that, how they identify kids is they go throughout the universe and they identify a kid who just randomly has Force abilities. And then they take those kids, assuming with the parents' permission, to the Jedi temple to train to be Jedi. I mean, there's no lineage there. So I don't know. That doesn't, like, still, Obi-Wan Kenobi has a mother and father, so, and grandparents, assumedly. So you could talk about their non-Force stories if you want, but I just don't see how anybody's going to be interested in that. I don't know. Maybe they could come up with something pretty fun. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Darth Plagueis, or opposite of Darth Plagueis. Emma Stone with neck brace writes, I hope Toby and Kristen are married in Spider-Man 3. Over under 15%, Eric Bana shows up, and over under 3%, Edward Norton and Terrence Howard show up. If Edward Norton has died after Hulk, would they have not recast? You got to remember the Eric Bana Hulk is not affiliated or associated in any way with the Norton Hulk. Those are two completely different iterations. The Edward Norton Hulk is the same Hulk that Mark Ruffalo plays. That's the same Hulk. But the Banner Hulk is not. That is completely... So basically, the Norton Jr. Hulk is a reboot. It's a complete new, fresh reboot from that Eric Bana one. And I'm going to take under 15% of all of that. I don't think we're going to see any of those guys. If anybody, the one that has a possibility is Terrence Howard. I don't know, maybe Disney feels like they need to give him a makeup one for replacing him as Rhodey. Maybe. But even that one I'll take under 15%. Interesting thought though, Emma. All right, next up. Casey McNatt writes, "Hey, John and Rob." Obviously, Rob's not here today. With the announcement of the new Fantastic Four film being directed by John Watts, he, of course, is the director of Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home. Do you feel they should touch on their origin again, like the other movies have already done? Or do you feel like everybody knows who this family is? No, this ain't Batman. The reality is this, and a lot of people who are comic book fanatics are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But the reality is this. The Fantastic Four are not Batman. The Fantastic Four are not Superman. And the Fantastic Four were not billion-dollar films when they played at the box office. Like if I go over, let me just give me a second here. If I look up Fantastic Four box office, let me see here. So the first Fantastic Four film, that can't be right. That looks way low. Anyway, so the first Fantastic Four film that had Chris Evans, now Box Office Mojo isn't loading up. No, there it is. So the Fantastic Four film, the most recent one that came out in 2015, that one had, that Michael B. Jordan played the Human Torch. That one made 167 million worldwide. All right? 167 million worldwide. Not opening weekend. A lot of comic book movies make more than that opening weekend. Not domestically, worldwide. So, I mean, and the other ones never, I can't, unfortunately right now, Box Office Mojo is having some kind of glitch or problem right now. So I cannot see that, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But the numbers were never really big. And while it is true that the Fantastic Four are the first family of Marvel Comics, the reality is, nobody bought Fantastic Four comics for many years. Like I remember back when I was still at AMC and they had canceled Fantastic Four because literally, and I remember we talked about this on the show. I said literally more people watched my mailbag show than were buying Fantastic Four comics. That's not enough to keep it in print. So combining the facts that not a lot of people were reading Fantastic Four in the last couple of decades, combining that with the fact that not a lot of people ran out to see their movies, I don't think the general public... See, even a lot of people in the non-comic book reading general public know the origins of Batman. A lot of the non-comic book reading general public know the origins of Superman. I would suggest that that's not necessarily the case with Fantastic Four. I think there's probably a lot of the non-comic book reading general public that really don't know what the or at least don't know what any of the details of the Fantastic Four. So I have a feeling they will indeed probably revisit the origin. And by the way, since this is a new iteration of Fantastic Four, Kevin Feige is going to want to have their own take on it. Remember, the other Fantastic Four movies had their own take on the origins. Each one was different. They had a different origin story for them. You don't have a different origin story for Batman. The Batman origin story is always the same. Kid with his parents going down crime alley, getting mugged by a dude, kills Thomas and Martha Wayne. Why did you say that name? Thomas and Martha Wayne. And the young Bruce Wayne died in that alley with their parents and the Batman was born. I mean, that's the same thing. Superman's the same. Born on a doomed planet, his parents send him off in a ship to Earth to be raised by Earthlings in Kansas. Same thing every single time. So with Kevin Feige starting his own Fantastic Four, I think he's going to want to establish what his definitive origin for them are. So I think, I don't know this for sure, But I think they will do their own origin. Casey also writes, also, do you feel they should put Dr. Doom in the first movie? Or do you think that's somebody you would have to build up to and have him work in the shadows? I think you can put Doom right in. Honestly, I know the other ones did as well. That's fine. I think you start off with Doom. Maybe not as your main antagonist, but I feel like Doom is a character that grows with the Fantastic Four, you know? So my take on it would be, yeah, I would have him right there. Now, I wouldn't say that about every villain, every arch nemesis of every superhero. But with Fantastic Four, I feel like Doom is the way to go. Yeah, I would say do it. Just do it better than they've done in the other movies. That's my only caveat to that, Casey. All right, Luis R. writes, the latest episode of Mandalorian reaffirmed for me that you can't have this show without Baby Yoda. Not because of the quality of the episode, but because we saw how much he means to Mando. You can't just separate them. He means more to me than you'll ever know, and I felt that. Yeah, that is a line that he said, and of course mimicking the words of Moff Gideon. Listen, I agree. I've been saying for a while, from the moment that what made Mandalorian a global phenomenon wasn't the Beskar armor. It wasn't the voice of Pedro Pascal, although Pedro's great, don't get me wrong. That show became a global phenomenon near the end of episode 1 as he goes to the casket and we see Baby Yoda. And the world collectively went, aww, and that was it. From that moment, you can't have a Mandalorian show without Grogu, or as we call him around here, Baby Yoda. You can't have the show without Baby Yoda. He is an integral part of this show now. Now, what you're suggesting, you can get around. Because sometimes showing a really strong emotional attachment that your main character has is good for the narrative when they have to break that attachment. That can be good storytelling. So I don't think the fact that Mando is so completely connected and attached to Baby Yoda, that means Baby Yoda can't be in the show. No, that could be a setup for a great narrative where he loses Baby Yoda, period. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. I'm just saying you could do that. I just think they know their audience. The audience wants Baby Yoda. And that's why not only are we not going to lose Baby Yoda, you're not going to hear Baby Yoda having talking conversations for a while. Because he's like Lisa Simpson, right? People don't want to hear Lisa Simpson having dialogue. They want Lisa Simpson to have the soother going. That's all they want to hear. And so, yeah, I just can't see them doing it without Baby Yoda. All right, next up. Angry Ogre writes, 1 of 3. Hi, John and Rob, if he's still there. Obviously not here right now. First time tipping, but with all the news coming in, I had to. Well, thanks for supporting the show, Angry One, or Angry Ogre. Also, wanted to say thanks for creating such a great place to come for movie news and insights with such a love for the medium. Thank you. Well, thank you for being a part of it, man. If they are not recasting T'Challa, how will they be able to transition to a new character being the Black Panther, or even represent his death without using Boseman's image digitally, as they said they would not? Will they just tell us T'Challa died and not show us anything? That seems really unceremonious for the character. Yeah, listen, that is a problem. How do they address the fact, or how do they address at all the fact that T'Challa's not there? I mean, you're not going to use his image, which I agree with. If you're not going to have him there and you're not going to recast him, don't reuse his image. I completely agree with that. But then what do? You're left having to say, oh, he died, and then move on. And you're right, it feels really unceremonious. I mean, they could do something along the lines of, you see a data pad with the new, like Wakandan news. King T'Challa passes from this or that or the other thing. National funeral for King T'Challa to happen on Wednesday. New whatever, King M'Baku declares month of mourning for the passing of King T'Challa. And then you start the movie at the funeral or so. I mean, there are ways to do it. Again, I think it is a mistake to not recast T'Challa. What made Black Panther such a culturally impactful movie was not the title Black Panther. It was the flesh and blood character of T'Challa. That was the inspiration. That character is what inspired millions of people. That character is what made that movie such a hit, not the title. Because yeah, any character in that universe can hold the title of Black Panther. That's not what made it special. It was the character T'Challa. The way he was written, the way he was directed, and the way he was acted by Chadwick Boseman. And now that he can't carry it on, instead of throwing it away, we should pick up that baton for T'Challa and say, don't you worry, Chadwick Boseman, we've got you. We'll pick up the baton and keep carrying it for you. Instead, they decided to throw the character away. And I think that's a damn shame. I think it's a damn shame. I'm not angry at Disney for it. I said this in my show earlier today because I get it. It's coming from a good place. It's coming from their motivation is to try to be as respectful and honoring as possible. And I respect that. So I'm not mad at them or anything like that. I just think they came to the wrong conclusion. That's all. But yeah, there are many different ways you can set it up, Angry Ogre. Many different ways they could set it up. And I agree with you. Whatever they do, it's going to feel unceremonious, unfortunately. All right. A Silly Goose writes, here's how much I like the prequels. Whilst watching Mando alone in my room, I, a 21-year-old man, started jumping up and down, clapping my hands when Boba Fett released the seismic charge. One of the best Mando moments so far. Anyway, have a good one, boss. Hey, listen, I do not like the prequels, but there are parts and moments in the prequels that I really do appreciate. I often talk about the pod race, which is, I think the pod race is amazing. Well, everybody will always talk about the Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Darth Maul fight. I love the Master Yoda lightsaber fighting, a lot of stuff. The seismic charges are damn cool. It is one of the best sound effects I've ever heard in the movie theaters. Seriously. When that, in the prequels, when that seismic charge was off, wow, it sounds like something Christopher Nolan wished, and that probably influenced a lot of Christopher Nolan's sound, but that wow, I love that sound. And even I, who don't like the prequels, when the camera cut to the back of the Slave One and it opened the bomb bay, and you see it, I'm like, oh, I start tapping in on the arm. I'm like, they're going to drop a seismic charge. And they dropped the seismic charge and wow. I mean, it was pretty awesome. Even I, somebody who does not like the prequels, even I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. Glad you liked it, man. The Wakandan Forever writes, I believe the word you were searching for is Space Ranger. The word I'm searching for I can't say because there are preschool toys present. Pixar taught me the difference between a kid movie and a family film. This Lightyear show news has me hyped. Now, listen, I've been saying for years, Pixar does not make kid movies. They simply don't. They make family-friendly movies, and there's a difference. You can't watch The Incredibles and tell me that kids under 11 understand half the jokes in that movie. They don't. They don't. Half the jokes in The Incredibles will go right over an 11-year-old's head. And a lot of the themes will go right over an 11-year-old's head. I mean, we've got a dad probably in The Incredibles, like in his 50s. He's looking back at his glory days and understanding the sacrifices you make personally for your family. These are all things a child does not get or understand, but that's what Pixar does. Pixar doesn't make kid movies. They make amazing movies, period, that happen to be family friendly at the same time. And so I agree with you on that. And I am looking forward to Lightyear. I can't wait to see what they do with Lightyear. All right, Wakanda Forever also writes, I watched the greatest double feature of all time. I watched Black Panther twice. That's a good one. Best double feature ever. I watched the same movie twice. No, my all-time favorite animated film and my favorite holiday film, Toy Story and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I saw it for the first time on the big screen before the recent shutdown. Really? You had never seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? That's not a pillow? I mean, that movie's great. Steve Martin, the great John Candy, good Canadian kid, by the way. One of the greatest Canadian kids of all time. And when it comes to Hollywood and media and being a big star, one of the greatest of all time. He was just absolutely fantastic. I don't care if he was Uncle Buck or in Splash or whatever. John Candy was the man. And I'm glad that your first experience with it was in the proper format on a big screen. That's great to hear, Wakandan. All right, next up. BB Kingpin writes, what's up, John? My question is, how much of Warner Brothers' decision is on Christopher Nolan, since he wanted to be what saved movies and Warner Brothers lost so much money from it. Very, very small. By the way, BB King tipped in $50. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level, man. Seriously, appreciate that very, very much. Not much. Not much at all. Because listen, what we are talking about here, as Denis Villeneuve pointed out in his Variety article, nobody is asking Warner Brothers to put out movies now in theaters in the height of the pandemic. Nobody's asking them to do that. What Denis and all the other directors and the agencies and the actors and their production partners and everybody else in the industry is saying, wait. Just wait. And the fact that they announced that all 2021 films were going to be on HBO Max, that was unreasonable. And that's why you see Legendary Pictures, the production company behind things like The Dark Knight, and they're the main production company and financiers of Godzilla vs. Kong and of Dune and all that kind of stuff. They're taking Warner Brothers to court. I mean, they paid for those movies, and Warner Brothers didn't even have a discussion with them, didn't even give them a heads up that they were making this move. And Legendary's like, that's not what we agreed to when we put up 75% of Dune's production budget. That's not what we agreed to at all. We'll see you in court, right? That a lot of that stems from the fact that they just way overstepped. Because look, this has nothing to do with the pandemic. Let's just be clear about that. Warner Brothers can say all they want. Oh, this is about the No, it's not. This is about them desperately trying to play catch up with Disney Plus. That's what this is about. This is about Warner Brothers chairman Toby wanting to look good to his bosses and trying to show to his bosses that, hey, we can catch up with Disney. Look what I'm going to do for us. This has nothing to do with COVID. This has to do everything with COVID being a false pretext for this move. But John, you might say, they said this was for 1 year only. Bullshit. Absolute BS. I don't think anybody believed that line. Certainly none of their partners believe them. And certainly most of the audience is too smart to believe it too. Yeah, they put out, look, if Denis Villeneuve and all these other filmmakers were asking Warner Brothers to put their movies out in theaters today, that'd be one thing. But like Denis said in his article, hey, listen, when Warner Brothers said we're moving your movie a full year to the end of 2021, Denis said, I totally understood and I agreed. That's the right move. Let's do that. Because this isn't about COVID to Warner Brothers. This is about them desperately trying to play catch up with Disney Plus and using other people's money like Legendary and using other people's talent like Denis Villeneuve to try to do it. And that's what has pissed a lot of their partners and a lot of their talent. And it's going to get uglier before it gets better, I think. I think it's going to get ugly. But the Tenet thing had very little to do with it. I mean, listen, the Tenet thing was a bad deal, right? They tried to put things out, but the pandemic continued to spike and they lost a bunch of money on it. They did. They lost a bunch of money on it. But if this was the same situation, you could point to Tenet, but this is a totally different, game. It's a totally different game. So we'll see where things go. Hey, BB, listen, thank you again so much for supporting the channel. And thanks for sending in that good question, man. Appreciate it. All right. Call of Duty God tips in $20. Thank you, Call of Duty, for sending that in. And Call of Duty writes, hello, John. I just finished Queen's Gambit and thought it was vintage Vales Militu of a show. Vales, do you mean verisimilitude of a show? Anyway, it's probably going over my head. Anya Taylor-Joy was fantastic and made me just love the show and character. I was wondering what you and Robert's opinions were of it. Love the show. Well, we've talked about Queen's Gambit a number of times. It's really good. Robert saw it before I did. Because honestly, it didn't even look all that interesting to me. But then a few people I know saw it and loved it. And then Robert saw it very early and he said he loved it. And then my wife started to watch it. And as soon as my wife started to watch it, I started picking up on it. Then I backed up and watched the rest of it. It was great. And it is if you want to listen, Anya Taylor-Joy has been around for a while and she's been in some fairly high profile projects. But this was really her coming out party. Queen's Gambit is what kind of put her on, I think, the map for a lot of people. She's fantastic in it. No way around it. She carries the film. or the limited series. She carries the limited series. She really does. And listen, everybody else in it is fantastic too, but she is the centerpiece of that whole show, and it was absolutely wonderful. They found some way to make this very slow, non-exciting game of chess to feel thrilling. And it allowed people, like, I play chess, but I'm not a chess player. You know what I mean? I know how to play chess, but I'm not a chess player. But this, not only was a great human drama, because if it's just about chess, you know, if a hockey movie is just about hockey, if a football movie is just about football, it's not going to be that interesting. You still got to put characters first, and this show did it. But at the same time, they made you really appreciate chess, like a lot. And so it checked off a lot of boxes, man. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, Call of Duty. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Thanks again, man. All right, next up, Call of Duty also writes in again. Hey, John, I was 10 minutes in and almost bailed because comedy, in my opinion, is the most subjective, and thank God I kept going. And you and the listeners recommended the great show of Schitt's Creek. What a gem of a show, and all the actors are great. Hey, listen, first of all, Schitt's Creek to me, it's a Canadian show. I don't know why I was so late to the party. Schitt's Creek and Kim's Convenience. They are two of the best shows on television. Schitt's Creek is now finished. They just had their series finale, but still, two of the best shows on television, and they're Canadian, and I never watched them. I just got on board with Kim's Convenience a number of months ago because a friend recommended it, and I fell in love with it, and then I never watched Schitt's Creek just because it didn't look all that good to me. And then I had enough people tell me, like, no, then what it was, I heard a few people say they really loved it, but then Schitt's Creek won all the Emmys, like all of them. At this most recent Emmy Awards, it won Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Direction, Best Writing, Best Show. It just swept everything. It like was a sweep of everything. And I'm like, okay, I got to check this out. And you're right, the first episode is okay. The first episode's okay. But once you start to get to know the characters, this show turns into, I think, a cultural touchstone, really. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm so glad I found it, that enough people told me about it. And I'm so glad, Call of Duty, that you found it through our show. So I'm really glad you got it, because it is seriously, I think it's a top 10 greatest show of all time. I'm not kidding. I've gone from overlooking it, never watching it. Today, I honestly feel it is a top 10 greatest television show of all time. That's a lot. And I know that's super high praise, but I'm telling you guys, whew, it's something special. It really is something special. I'm glad you found it, Call of Duty God. All right, next up, Ahmed Z writes, hey, John, I just saw Mulan on Disney Plus and I absolutely loved it. Well, I'm glad I didn't love it. I enjoyed it, but I thought it was a lot of missed opportunities, but that's the beautiful thing about these movies, man. They're all subjective. They all hit us in different ways, and I'm glad you loved it. I can't believe how good it was. I was thoroughly entertained and actually got chills, which is rare for me. Might have to support Disney by purchasing Premier Access on their next movie. Hey, man, that's the important thing, you know? And look, a lot of people hated the movie. A lot of people were like me that thought, oh, it's all right, just didn't live up to its potential. And then there's a bunch of people who absolutely loved it. That's the beautiful thing about the subjectivity film, man, is we all have different experiences with the same piece of art. And I love that you had such a good and positive experience. It makes me a little bit jealous. I wish I had the same kind of positive experience, but I'm glad you did, my friend. All right, next up, Andrew Nathan writes, John, it's confirmed. Mr. Dickovich is back for Spider-Man 3 to ask for rent. Rent? And was it Yakov Smirnoff? Is that the guy? Is that Yakov Smirnoff that plays that role? I can't remember if it is. Rent? Is back for Spider-Man 3. LOL, internet kills every time. Do you think that Peter will have a Ghost of Christmas Past type scenario in the film, with Doctor Strange showing Peter the struggles of his other selves? That's interesting. Actually, you know, Andrew, is an approach to this that I haven't heard anybody put forward yet. What if it is like, you know, Spider-Man is like, oh, woe is me. Everything, like Tom Holland is, man, nobody else could have it as hard as I do. And Doctor Strange says, look at your other versions of you and look at the struggles they've had and what they've lost and what they've sacrificed. And then we see Emma Stone dying from the fall, seeing Gwen Stacy die from that fall. That was, by the way, I don't care what you thought. Like, I didn't think The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was nearly as good as the Amazing Spider-Man one. But you've got to, that scene was powerful. Like when they did such a good job in those movies of having great chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone and those characters, that when she dies, I don't care, man. I felt that for Peter. I felt that. And that was so good. But imagine that Doctor Strange going, hey, you're not the only version of you that has had to suffer loss and sacrifice. Take a look. And looking through his magic orb or whatever it is. And then they look through and they see that scene. I don't think that's what they're going to do, but I think that's a very creative way of looking at it, Andrew. I'm going to keep my eyes open for that. Wouldn't it be interesting if they tried to do something like that? All right. Mischievous Gremlin writes, one of two. Hey, John and Rob, who's not here right now. Let's face facts. This year, we didn't really have very much content as far as Disney Plus goes. However, with that being said, I think next year will keep people from not canceling their subscriptions with all the Marvel and Star Wars content, that we get. I really think that with the Marvel content, we will be getting pretty much every 2 months, and the Star Wars content that has yet to come. I think 2021 is going to be the year that Disney Plus really takes off and could go over Netflix. What do you think? Now, listen, my biggest complaint, all right, for the past 8 months about Disney Plus has been the fact that they launched Disney Plus with all this hoopla. And as far as premium original content goes, we got season 1 of Mandalorian. I mean, we have season 2 now, but for the most of the year, we got 1 season of Mandalorian and they put out Hamilton. Both are great. Those are both fantastic. But I paid an entire year to see 1 season of Mandalorian and one sitting of Hamilton. And Hamilton was great. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic. It lives up to the hype. That won't be a problem anymore. Now, obviously they got tons of premium original content coming. The big test is still to come, though, Mischievous Gremlin. The big test is still to come. But the real question is going to not be, do you have all this content? The question is going to be, what kind of content is it? Bob Iger said it's going to be about quality over quantity. Great. So are all these new shows, this is what I said earlier today too, are all these new shows going to be Mandalorian, which is excellent, or are they going to be Noel? That Anna Kendrick, and I love Anna Kendrick, but that Noel Christmas movie they put up on Disney Plus was absolute shite. Like, it was garbage. So is all this great new content you're bringing out, is it going to be Mandalorian quality, or is it going to be Noel quality? Obviously, I think it's going to lean more towards Mandalorian quality, but that's going to ultimately be to see how they do moving forward. All right, thanks for sending that in, Mischievous. GQ writes in, Saul Goodman went full John Wick in Nobody. Yeah, we talked about the Nobody trailer on the John Campea Show a little bit earlier today. We discussed that one, and that was, I mean, it really was a John Wick trailer, right? And we talked about that. The Nobody trailer starring Bob Odenkirk. There's a reason it feels like a John Wick trailer, because it's written by the same guy who wrote all the John Wick movies, and it's directed by the co-director of John Wick. So that all kind of made sense. But you know what? I was perfectly fine with that because the trailer was awesome, and I cannot wait to see that one, GQ. All right, Anonymous writes, and sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much, Anonymous, for supporting the channel on that level, man. Seriously, thank you so much. Anonymous writes, hey, John, hope you're doing well and staying safe. I am, thank you. Have you ever seen the movie Treasure Planet? I have. It was a long time ago, though. And if so, what are your thoughts on it? Thanks, and always remember to wear a mask. I always do. Now, this is the animated film. Hold on a second. Treasure Planet. I just want to make sure, because I think we're talking about the same movie. I just want to absolutely make sure that we are. That was in the early 2000s, was it not? Yes, Treasure Planet from 2002. Wait a minute, is this the right? Yeah, the Disney animated version of Treasure Planet. Yeah. I remember this. Oh, I remember it. I remember not loving it, to be honest with you. I remember not loving it. Now, again, this is like 18 years ago. This movie, I'll bring it up here. This is like 18 years ago. I remember liking it, but I don't ever remember watching it again. I don't ever remember watching it again. So, but if I remember correctly, I just, like I said earlier, I think I remember not loving it. But yeah, and yeah, I don't recognize any of the voice cast in it. like at all, which is a little bit different. For those of you who don't know, a Disney animated version of Treasure Planet, the only difference is that this movie is set in outer space with alien worlds and other galactic wonders. It was directed by Ron Clements. And it was also co-directed by John Musker. I didn't realize that. Anyway, yeah, so it's just one of those films that kind of came and went and was forgotten about for me. But I've heard a few people talk about it and say they still remember it fondly. Anyway, next up. We've got, anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. And thank you for supporting the channel on that level. It's really generous of you, man. All right, next up, Swim writes. One of two. One of the things I noticed with the announcement of the new Star Wars projects, all of them are looking back, not forward with the series. I wonder if maybe they now believe there is no future in the, I don't know what NT is, or we would at least see one project. Oh, you mean the new trilogy? Well, the new trilogy is over. I would not be shocked, I know you disagree, that they are preparing for an event to decanonize episodes 7, 8, and 9, or a different timeline. No, they're not. Believe that they are not. But don't believe any BS you see anywhere. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do it to the prequels. They're not going to do it to the sequels. They're not going to decanonize any of it. I mean, they've been playing fast and loose with canon already, but they're not going to decanonize 7, 8, and 9. Like, don't believe that for a hot second. There is absolutely nothing to base that belief on. There's absolutely zero to base that belief on. They are simply not going to do that. The Ahsoka title card shows the veil of the Force, a possible clue that they could go in this route. They're simply not going to do that. There is 0% chance that they are going to do that. If they didn't do that with the prequels, they're not going to do it with the sequels. It just is what it is. They're going to leave it be. Much like they did with the prequels, and they hardly ever reference the prequels. They will leave it be, and they will move on. But they are not going to decanonize 7, 8, 9. No chance in hell. They are doing all these shows because they're doing what Star Wars has done for the past 20 plus years. They are focusing on things we already know. Right? Now, we know they're moving in a new direction. They're going to do High Republic, which I think is great. They're going to do High Republic, which is fantastic. But you got to understand, too, they can move forward, and they will eventually move forward in time after the events of The Rise of Skywalker. But there are a lot of other stories to tell. They can, just like they did movies that happened after the prequels and rarely, if ever, referenced the prequels. Like the prequels were hardly ever even remotely referenced in the following movies. They can do the same thing with the new trilogy. Even if they want to move away from the new trilogy, they won't decanonize them. They'll just move on, just like they did from the prequels. So, yeah, don't believe for a hot second swim that they're going to decanonize 7, 8, and 9. They're not. Anybody who tells you otherwise is simply lying to you or telling you something they think you want to hear, but there's no truth to that whatsoever. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, in the season finale, Baby Yoda says his first word, McClunky. Yeah, no, that's probably not going to happen. Again, like I said earlier, I know you're joking, but I really don't think they're going to ever have him talk. I really don't. I think they're going to do a Lisa Simpson because he's absolutely adorable and beloved the way he is. And because of that, I don't even think they're ever going to have him talk. Now, I'm not saying take that to the bank. I'm just saying I personally don't think we're ever going to actually hear him talk. All right, Glenn Tracy writes, can you think of times you preferred secondary characters in franchises and why? I don't know why, but I always preferred Luigi, Tails, Spider-Man, MCU as a whole, Bones, Mace Windu, Legolas. Is this an instinctive rebellious mindset or an illness? No, I think there's plenty of times that movies have happened and you just gravitate towards certain characters. I don't think there's any kind of rule that says we all automatically gravitate to main characters. I think there are a lot of times, like even you just go to like a TV show like Boston Legal, right? With James Spader and William Shatner. William Shatner's the one, I mean, James Spader was the lead guy in that show, but everybody always talked about William Shatner's character, right? What was Shatner's character's name? I can't remember his character's name. But anyway, Shatner won Emmys for that. He was, you know what, this is killing me. I got to look it up. Hold a second here. I got to look it up. Boston Legal. James Spader, William Shatner, and the name of his character was Denny Crane. That's right, Denny Crane. I mean, he was great in that. I mean, that happens too. A lot of people watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Sisko was the main character, but for a lot of people, other characters, or even go further into Star Trek. You know, you look at the lead show, clearly the lead character of Star Trek The Next Generation was Jean-Luc Picard, but to a lot of people, Worf was their favorite character, or Data was their favorite character, or whoever else, or Riker was their favorite character. It's not a completely unusual thing at all. I mean, even if you look at what's going on right now with Star Wars, right? I thought Alden Ehrenreich did a very good job playing Han Solo, a younger version of Han Solo. I thought he did a very good job. But for a lot of people, Danny Glover kind of stole the show as a young Lando Calrissian, and now we've got a young Lando Calrissian limited series coming out. So I don't think you're crazy, Glenn, and I don't think it's actually all that unusual. That's why they give us multiple characters in movies. If we don't completely attach to the main character, maybe we attach to one of the secondary characters. All right, Black Frost writes, "Hey, John, I know you and Ann found the Believer episode lacking. I quite enjoyed it. I never believe I said I found it lacking. It's not my favorite episode of the season, but I quite enjoyed it. Anyway, and I think it may be because the Star Wars fans are being conditioned with fan service, and that's what the episode was lacking. I'm not a diehard Star Wars fan, and it was one of my favorite. No, actually, I have, if you've listened to me for any period of time, I actually prefer it when they don't do fan service. Now, don't get me wrong. Fan service can be a very effective tool when fan service is like any other tool. It can be used well and it can be used badly. Novelty and shtick are also just tools. They can be used really effectively and they can be used really badly. I kind of lean a little bit away from fan service, although they've certainly done a lot of it in Mandalorian and a lot of other things, and they can do it well. And I appreciate it when they do. But I kind of prefer it a little bit when they get a little bit more original and lean away from fan service. So no, I thought this episode was really good. I did not find it wanting at all. I don't know if you watched my actual review of it. It wasn't my favorite episode, but I liked it quite a bit. Anyway, thanks for throwing in your thoughts though, Black Frost. All right, Black Frost also writes, and tips in like $20. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. Seriously. Also, Rick Famuyiwa wrote and directed both Bill Burr episodes. Yes, he did. Which may be the connection why you found them both lacking. Writing to you from Thunder Bay. Again, I don't know where you're getting that from. I did not find the episode The Believer to be lacking. I thought Bill Burr was great. I thought they had a lot of really great character stuff. I thought they gave us a little bit of a peek into what Rangers of the New Republic will be. I have no inside information on this. I'm just guessing and speculating as a fan, but I think Rangers of the New Republic is going to be Fennec and Gina Carano, Cara Dune, and I think Bill Burr's character is going to be in there. So yeah, again, I don't know where you're getting this thing where I found it lacking. I didn't find it lacking at all. And by the way, I liked that episode. I just didn't love the Bill Burr character in the first episode he was in season 1. I still like the episode of a whole when we got Bobby from Sons of Anarchy in that episode. And then we got to look at the X-Wing fighters for the first time in Mandalorian in that episode. There's a lot of good things about that episode, but yeah, I don't think you were paying attention really to what it was I was saying about that one, Black Frost. Anyway, again, thank you for sending in your thoughts, man. And thanks for supporting the channel on that level. All right, James Germain writes, "Hey, John. Made a comment the other day about Zorro that you misunderstood. I was saying the captain that killed Zorro's brother is the same actor that plays the Reverse Flash, Dr. Harrison Wells, facelift pitter patter. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Like, I know the actor who plays Wells. He's great. Good Canadian actor, by the way. I'm forgetting the actor's name, but he's a good Canadian kid. I know that. I didn't realize he was in Zorro. I still don't get the pitter patter reference. But I did not know he was in that Zorro movie. I have to go back and watch it for that now to make sure I catch him. Thanks for the little bit of trivia on that, James. All right, The Sock writes, do you think it's worth to get ESPN Plus if the only sports I enjoy watching are UFC and boxing? Well, I know for me it is. Because they have a UFC card on almost every week. Some of them are the big pay-per-views, and you have to have ESPN Plus to get the pay-per-views. But like 3 other times a month, they just have UFC Fight Nights for free on ESPN Plus. So I know for me, 95% of what I watch ESPN Plus for is actually for the UFC events. And I don't even really watch boxing. unless there's a really big marquee matchup. Other than that, I don't really watch boxing all that much. To me, it's all UFC, and considering it's like $6 or $7 a month, whatever, for me, for 3 or 4 free UFC fight nights a month, paying that, I'm totally good. So my recommendation, Sock, is if you're a UFC fan, I think it's totally worth having ESPN for. Absolutely. Even if that's all you watch it for. I really do. Judah writes, "Hey, John, why is nobody talking about the Eternals?" Well, because it's still so far away. That's mostly it. Supposedly it still holds a release date of February 12th, 2021. It does not. No. The Eternals is not coming out on that date. Hold a second. The Eternals. Just so we're all on the same page here. It was moved much later, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's moved all the way to November. So it's still basically a year away. The Eternals is still basically just under a year away. And remember, this is a totally new story, right? Most people have never heard of or know who the characters in that movie are. It's not like Fantastic Four. We've never had Fantastic Four in the MCU, but a lot of people are excited because everybody is familiar with the Fantastic Four to one degree or another. The Eternals is a totally new thing. We don't know any of the most people don't know any of the characters in it, and it is still a year away. So that's the main reason. That's less than 3 months away, and we haven't seen a trailer yet. Should we be worried? Is this another Inhuman situation? Hope not. And again, listen, everybody always writes, "Oh no, a trailer hasn't come out. Does that mean the studio's doesn't have faith in the movie?" Listen, when a studio or a distributor puts out a trailer, has nothing to do with whether or not they believe in the movie. As a matter of fact, and I've made this argument before, and I'll make it again, I really believe the opposite is true. The earlier they start putting out trailers, it's not a hard and fast rule, but I believe there's a lot of examples of the earlier they start putting out trailers is actually a bit of a sign that they have less faith in the movie. Because it's like, holy crap, this movie's shit. Well, we better promote the hell out of it and make as much money on opening weekend as we can, because once it opens on opening weekend, bad word of mouth is going to come out, and then we're not going to make as much money. We need to get as much on that opening weekend as possible before word of mouth starts spreading. Honestly, yeah, if a distributor thinks a movie is bad, that is not going to prevent them from marketing it. It might only enhance them marketing. Again, it doesn't automatically mean that at all. I'm just saying that to show that it can go either way. I would never, ever assume that a trailer not being out yet is any kind of a sign that they don't believe in the movie. It could mean the one thing you could worry about is being worried that they might be moving the movie. But other than that, I wouldn't worry about it. But again, the point is moot in this situation, Judah, because we still got a year before the Eternals comes out. So the point is moot at any rate. All right, next up. Willow writes, "Darn it, I'm going to be bummed out now they don't have a scene in Spider-Man 3 of all 3 Spider-Men doing the emo dance. What was your reaction when you watched Raimi's Spider-Man 3 for the first time and that scene happened?" I couldn't believe they were doing it. I couldn't believe they just did that in that movie. Now, listen, I'm one of these guys that I don't consider Spider-Man 3 to be the steaming pile of garbage that a lot of other people do. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good at all. But I don't think it's like completely unredeemable. I believe there are redeeming elements of that movie for sure. But yeah, when they were doing that thing, the whole emo Peter thing, I just remember thinking it felt very schlocky. Yeah, I'll stick with that. It felt very schlocky to me, Willow. Again, and I don't hate the movie, but it's a bad film. But yeah, even when I was watching it, I'm like, yeah, what are they doing? What are they doing? And that is a scene, Willow, that will go down in infamy. All right, next up, Matthew Phillips writes, thanks for writing that in, Willow. Matthew Phillips writes, "Hey, John, as a mutual Tarkin fan, will he ever be featured heavily in anything? I've enjoyed his appearances in comics and everything pre A New Hope as the OG big bad guy. I wish that with these dead characters returning, it makes me wonder, justice for Wilhuff Tarkin." And by the way, the Tarkin novel, let me see if I can bring this up. Tarkin novel, let me see if I can find it. The Tarkin novel is absolutely one of my favorite Star Wars novels. It is absolutely one of my favorite Star Wars novels, particularly of the new era. It might actually be my second or third. Let me bring it up here. It basically looks at a younger Wilhuff Tarkin and how he rose up the ranks in the Empire and was the first person to be bestowed the rank by the Emperor himself of Grand Moff. There had never been a Grand Moff before Tarkin. It was literally a title and position created by the Emperor specifically for Wilhuff Tarkin. It is a fabulous book. I really, really enjoy it. The only ones I would put ahead of it are Dark Lords of the Sith, that features the Emperor and Vader. I think best Star Wars novel ever written. I just love that book. Maybe Lost Stars. Lost Stars is fabulous. If you haven't read it, you absolutely should. But right up there with them, I would put this Tarkin novel. Tarkin is a fabulous character. I mean, you know that just from watching him in A New Hope. But when you actually go back and get into his origins with the Tarkin novel in there, it just becomes even more rich. And then you see him in Rebels. The way he's portrayed in Rebels is fantastic. And I would love to see them do, not necessarily on screen. Like, I get why they used the Tarkin character in Rogue One. You had to have Tarkin in Rogue One. There was no way you could do that story without Grand Moff Tarkin being a part of it. I get it. But I don't see them using him on screen for other things moving forward. But in books, novelizations, games, maybe even animated, I would love to see more with Tarkin because he absolutely is a fascinating character. All right, next up. Dakota writes, with all these crazy Spidey rumors, do you think we will see everyone returning for Doctor Strange as well? Like this whole multiverse starts with WandaVision, then next step is Spider-Man 3, then finally Doctor Strange. Also very excited for Maguire and Garfield. And again, let's be clear about the Maguire and Garfield thing. Maguire and Garfield coming back for Spider-Man 3 is being reported by multiple sources from multiple outlets, right? And I've heard it myself from some people I know. But that being said, it is important for us all to know that neither Sony nor Garfield or Maguire or Marvel or anybody official has confirmed it. I believe it's happening. I've heard it from my own people. Multiple sources have heard it from, multiple outlets have heard it from multiple sources. This isn't one of those situations like the Charlie Cox situation is Daredevil, where everybody's just hearing it from the same one source. Everybody's getting it from that one website that's not one of the major trades. And it could be true. It could be true. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's not one of those situations where it's all just coming from one place. The Maguire and Garfield thing is coming from multiple outlets who are hearing it from multiple sources, myself included. So I believe it is happening. But just so we're all clear, it's actually not official yet. But you raise a great question. Right? We know we're getting this whole thing kind of kicked off with WandaVision. We know because Kevin Feige said at the Disney announcement that WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is kind of one interconnected story. Will we see Garfield and Maguire and Emma Stone and whoever else? Will we see those characters also in the Doctor Strange movie? I'm guessing no. I think they'll bring up Garfield Maguire and then they'll draw that to a conclusion in Spider-Man 3. And then I believe we might get into some other wackiness in Doctor Strange that Sam Raimi himself is directing. But, I mean, don't put it, since Sam Raimi, who directed the original Spider-Man movies, don't completely put it by him to bring in Tobey Maguire. I mean, it seems natural. I still don't think that's what they'll do, though. I think they'll bring in other wackiness. I think they'll resolve the Spider-Man stuff with Garfield and Maguire in Spider-Man 3, and then they'll move on to other wackiness in Doctor Strange. But again, the Raimi connection, don't discount it, and it would be interesting to see what they do there, Dakota. All right, next up. Matt McClure writes, hey, John, am I alone in being let down that the next Star Wars film is Rogue Squadron? I'm stoked for small screen shows, but I want some good Jedi and Sith stories. After the last trilogy, a pilot movie doesn't do it for me. What are your thoughts? Oh, this pilot movie does it for me. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? I'm all about it. Listen, there's very, very few great space combat scenes in cinematic history. Very few. A lot of space combat scenes, very few great space combat scenes. The greatest, as a matter of fact, the greatest all-time space combat scene is still Return of the Jedi, with the attack on the second Death Star above Endor. That is still the greatest space combat scene ever. But oh my goodness, the one in Rogue One was also fantastic. To see fighter ships and like capital class ships and big space battles. I mean, put the war back in Star Wars. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm going to eat it up. And then you got it being directed by one of my probably 10 favorite directors working right now with Patty Jenkins. Oh my God, sign me up, man. Absolutely, I'm stoked about that. 1000% I am stoked about that. Cannot wait. Now, Sith and Jedi. Here's the problem. The problem is Sith and Jedi again requires moving backwards. Then again, so does Rogue Squadron. But, I mean, I don't know, maybe the new Republic. Maybe this Rogue Squadron story is going to be told during the new Republic. I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe it happens after the events of The Rise of Skywalker. Remember, we just did a story earlier today on the John Campea Show where Patty Jenkins said, this Rogue Squadron movie is not going to be based on any of the books. There's going to be influence taken from the books and video games and things like that. You're going to see some influences, but this is an original story, she said. And I think that opens the door that this Rogue Squadron movie could take place after the events of The Rise of Skywalker. I'm not saying it is, but Patty Jenkins was very clear this is a new story. And if that's the case, I mean, look, then it's moving forward. If you want to do real Jedi versus Sith, you got to go Old Republic, right? You can't even go to the High Republic era. Because by the time you're in the High Republic era, then you're in, with the Sith, you're in the Rule of Two era. You got to go all the way back to Old Republic. They will do Old Republic at some point. They will. And we will get at some point that big Jedi versus Sith thing. Of that, I feel very good. But for now, a great space combat movie with oh God, dude, I'm telling you what, Matt, I'm eating it up. Now listen, I'm sure you're not alone. A lot of people are looking forward to big Sith versus Jedi battles, but the universe of Star Wars is bigger than just the Force users. And like I said, put the war back in Star Wars. Take that little taste we got in Rogue One and give me a whole movie of that. And I'm on board, and especially with a great director like that, totally am. But let's see how it goes, Matt. But don't worry, at some point, they will go Old Republic. They will get to Old Republic, and we'll have that Jedi versus Sith stuff. All right, Steve Pintor writes, hey, John. I agree with you that Falcon should not be the next Captain America, but I must admit, I love his new suit. I rented your movie and now I'm going to buy it because I loved it so much. Oh, thank you so much for that, Steve. I appreciate that. Also, I love when you tell the Bring on the Filthy story. Well, just for that, I will, for those of you who don't know it, here's the origin of Bring on the Filthy. I feel like I tell the story every, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Bring on the Filthy, the saying, comes from a whole bunch of years ago, when I was in the early days of AMC Movie Talk. I was doing a mailbag episode, I believe. And the 50 Shades of Grey movie had not yet come out. And everybody was still just talking about this 50 Shades of Grey movie was coming. And somebody had written in a question, if I remember correctly, asking if it'll be rated NC-17. And I was like, no, they're not going to do that. They want to make a lot of money on this movie. And they did make a lot of money on the movie. They want to make a lot of money in this movie, so it'll be dirty, but they're not going to do it so explicit that it would get NC-17 or anything like that. They're not going to do that. And I said, now, don't get me wrong. It's not that I mind the filthy. I love the filthy. Bring on the filthy. That's what I said during the show. I said, don't get me wrong. I have no problem with the filthy. I love the filthy. Bring on the filthy. That was me talking about potentially like really heavily adult sexual stuff being in the movie. I said, bring on the filthy. And after that one episode of Mailbag, it just stuck. And after that one episode, like every 2 or 3 emails that came in, and we would get like 100 a day. And out of that 100, at least 30 or 40 of them would end their messages into the show as bring on the filthy. And it's just kind of been with us ever since. And now, I don't know, what was that, 6-7 years ago? Maybe longer? That was a long time ago. And it is still a thing. And yes, listen, I have no problem. My issue with the next Captain America is I don't believe there should be a next Captain America. To me, it's not about Bucky should be Captain America. No, Bucky can't be the next Captain America either. So it's not about Falcon, it's anybody. I don't think anybody should be the next Captain America. Steve Rogers is Captain America. Steve Rogers is Captain America is Steve Rogers is Captain America. That's the thing to me. Now, I know that's not the way they're going to go and all that kind of stuff, and the title is important, but to me, it's just that. It's kind of like in hockey. You don't call any other hockey player the great one. Wayne Gretzky is the great one is Wayne Gretzky is the great one is Wayne Gretzky. Right? So it's not that I have any problem with Falcon. It's not like I would prefer Bucky be it. It's that I don't think anybody should be Captain America. Steve Rogers is Captain America. But John, I don't give a shit what they do in the comics. This isn't the comics. This is the MCU. Right? The MCU is separate from the comics. And I don't give a crap that they do this or that in the comics. I really don't care. There are certain things that are great and certain things that I just think that, to me, Captain America is Steve Rogers is Captain America. So anyway, that's how I feel about that. I know a lot of people disagree, and that's cool. We're all allowed to disagree. That's just kind of how I feel about it, though. All right, next up. Ryan Lohner writes, with the passing of John Le Carré, who's the novelist, I have to point out that The Spy Who Came In From the Cold with Richard Burton is a real gem and sorely overlooked these days. He leaves behind a massive body of work that anyone could be proud of. You know what? I need to go and look this up. I wasn't clear whether, I don't know if he was ever a screenwriter. Like, did he ever actually write the screenplay for the adaptation from the novelization? But yeah, I mean, just add another one to the crap show that has been 2020. Right, and I read about his passing, and it might have been, if I remember correctly, it might be COVID related that he died. But at any rate, so just another one. And thanks for bringing that up, Ryan. Appreciate that, man. All right, Vintage Toy Warehouse writes, hi, sorry to bother. We culled the units like you asked, but there was an electrical storm and 3 of the Campea patch dolls gained sentience and escaped. They're harmless, but also plucky and upset with you. It'll be fine. Just don't post your new address. I can't remember. Is that a reference to something? Is that like a Child's Play reference? I'm not sure. The Campea patch dolls. Next up, James L.H. writes, hey, John, cinemas are reopening here in the UK, except my Cineworld. To see Wonder Woman 84 means 30-minute drive to an Odeon, AMC owned. That's okay. But what's better is until January 7th, Odeon are offering Cineworld Unlimited members 50% off the ticket price. Really good by Odeon. That's great. Yeah, listen, honestly, first of all, I think that's awesome that you have that option. I do not have that option where I live. I think all the theaters have once again been closed down. I don't even think the ones in San Francisco are open again. So I think even if I wanted to go to the theaters to watch Wonder Woman, I would have to drive 3.5 hours to 4 hours to go to Vegas to go watch it. I'm not going to do that, especially on Christmas. Now remember, I went to movie theaters twice in the past number of months. Once to Vegas, so I could go and see New Mutants when it came out. And then once to Orange County, Anaheim, California, which is about 45 minutes to an hour drive from where I live, to go see Tenet when it came out. Both times were very good experiences for me. I felt like their safety protocols were top notch. I felt safe in those environments. I felt safer in there than I did going into a grocery store. Infinitely safer. That said, the pandemic spikes right now are worse than they were when I went those times. And even though I believe that movie theaters are doing a very good job with their safety protocols, the spikes are so bad right now that even if Wonder Woman was playing in a movie theater, if there was a theater open somewhere relatively close to me, I'm not sure it would be the reasonable or responsible thing for me right at this moment to go during the peak this spiking of the pandemic. I just think it's unnecessary right now. And this is coming from the world's biggest advocate of the theatrical experience. But listen, light is coming. Light at the end of the tunnel is coming. You know, the vaccinations have just started. We're a long way from it being fully effective. We're a long way from that. But the light is now at the end of the tunnel. We see an end in sight to this ridiculous darkness we've been living in. It's coming. It's coming. Now, that's just me talking about the situation here in the U.S., the country that has handled the pandemic worse than any other country on the planet. Maybe where you live, it's a different situation. And either way, I'm glad that you have that option. Just remember, when you go safe. Be safe when you do it, James. And I'm glad you have the choice. All right. Isolated with the dog writes, hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much, Isolated. I don't know if you ever watched Babylon 5. I did. Actually, a buddy of mine, guy who used to do the movie the movie blog podcast with me, Darren Connolly. Biggest Babylon 5 fan I've ever met in my life. Anyway, don't know if you ever watched Babylon 5. I did. I like the first 2 seasons the most. It doesn't get the credit it deserves today because of that sci-fi show. It helped to influence the darker elements in many sci-fi programs. I don't know which one is you for number 2. I'm sorry about that. Babylon 5 was great. And Babylon 5 was one of those shows where they actually planned out they did something that you really shouldn't do, but they did, and it paid off. They actually planned out the whole show, the whole series, before they started shooting season 1. Now, again, that's not a good thing to do. A lot of showrunners will tell you that then leaves you no room for flexibility to allow the show to live and breathe and take on a life of its own and kind of follow where it goes. But in that case of Babylon 5, it really did pay off. And for a lot of sci-fi fans consider Babylon 5 to be like the gold standard of sci-fi television. If you've never checked it out, you probably should at some point. Thanks for writing that in, man. All right, Mischievous Gremlin writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, I was watching you answer my question about delaying Winter Soldier on Sunday, and I want to point out that when you looked up the release date, you said August of 2020. Yeah, actually, I said August of 2020. Clearly, that would have been months ago. I realized that after we had done the show. Well, that date has already passed and was probably the original date it was. Yeah, that was probably the original date. The original date was supposed to come out. Now the Falcon and Winter Soldier is supposed to come out in March before Black Widow, which comes out in May, which makes total sense. Yeah, I realized that after we had finished the show. Because we were doing the show, I was like, what is the date of Falcon Winter Soldier now? I looked it up, and it's like August was the first date that I saw. And it totally went over my head that it was August of 2020, not 2021. So yes, Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to come out before Black Widow, which is what they've always needed it to do. So I'm glad thanks for pointing that out. I did figure that out, but I'm glad you pointed it out anyway. So thanks for that, Mischievous Gremlin. You're absolutely right about that. All right, Caleb writes, assuming No Time to Die is good and does relatively well, and then the Broccoli family decides to sell Eon Productions, how much do you think it'll go for? Over under 2.5 billion, 50% of what Lucasfilm. Who do you think will buy it? I don't. First of all, let's be very clear here, Caleb. I know Rob believes that the Broccoli's will look to sell it after they're done with No Time to Die. I do not believe that in the least. That is something they want to pass down. I believe that is their family legacy. There's a great deal of pride in owning the Bond franchise. And I don't believe for one hot second that they have any desire to lose that property or to give it away or whatever. I don't believe that in the least. That being said, just for argument's sake, if for whatever reason they were to sell the Bond franchise, the economics are different today than they were just a number of years ago when Lucasfilm sold to Disney. I think it would probably be closer to the $4 to $5 billion thing, because you're talking about a legacy title. Bond is a beloved franchise. It is a generational franchise, and it is a franchise that will go on forever. And especially with one of the recent Bond films making $1 billion on its own, a sale price of $2 billion for a franchise, whoever the buyers are, can continue to make movies on that franchise for the next 50 years. A $2 billion sale price is way low. way low. I believe it'd be minimum double that. Minimum double that. And maybe even a little bit more. So yeah, definitely over 2.05 billion. Again, just one of their recent films made 1 billion on its own. So they'll probably look to figure what would the profit be of 5 films. And that's probably where they'll estimate the value on it. So I think it'd be well over 2.5. Good question though, Caleb. But again, just to be clear, I don't believe for a second that the Broccoli family is going to sell. I don't believe that for a second. I mean, I don't have any insider information. Maybe they will. I just don't believe they will. All right. Chris Hobgood writes, hey, John, I don't know if you saw the entire The Prom cast has been submitted for Oscar consideration. That's not unusual. Normally, I haven't been the biggest fan of James Corden. However, his performance in The Prom on Netflix is Oscar-worthy. Let me know your thoughts. I haven't watched The Prom yet. I know Anne wants to watch it, so we're probably going to sit down and watch it in the next day or two. Let me tell you this. I am not the biggest James Corden fan in the world. All right? I don't watch his show. I've seen a few of his sketches and singing in cars, and it can be cute and whatever, but for whatever reason, he's just not the, his stylings just aren't instantly appealing. I certainly don't dislike James Corden, not at all. Some of his skit stuff has been very, very good. But his stylings aren't, I'm not his target audience. Let's just say that. With that being said, I think it was Into the Woods was the first time that I really paid a lot of attention to him because he was into that Into the Woods movie. And I thought he was fantastic in it. Not a huge role, but I thought he was fantastic. And every time I've seen him since, like even in the recent all-female version of Ocean's 11, what was it called? Ocean's 8? Is that what it was called? Anyway, even, he just pops up as this investigator. I loved him in it. I love him in movies, whether he's singing or whether he's not. I have found a real appreciation for him on that level. So I expect whenever Ann and I get around to watching The Prom, I expect I'll probably really enjoy him in it because he's just really good in that stuff, to be honest with you. All right. Thanks for sending that in, man. Next up, Jarrell Edwards writes, I cannot wait until Wonder Woman 84. I don't care what you say. Those trailers were great. And I want to thank Warner Brothers for allowing us to see this film and the 2021 slate safely in our homes while this virus has ruined this year for us. Hashtag I stand with Warner Brothers. Hey, listen, I get the Wonder Woman move. Wonder Woman is a movie that could have come out a year ago. Wonder Woman 84 was a movie that literally could have come out a year ago. And then it got moved, and then it got moved again, and it got moved again. For Wonder Woman, I get it. I do. However, Warner Brothers' move was a self-serving, diabolical, underhanded, backstabbing move that they did to all of their co-financing companies, to their talent, to their directors, to their partners. It was a despicable, backstabbing move that has pissed off everybody in the industry. And make no mistake about it, Jarrell, they did not do this for the fans. They didn't do this because of COVID. The reason they did it, and then the reason they did it quietly, like a cowardly little thief in the middle of the night, and snuck it out into a public release without telling the financing companies that worked with them, without telling the co-production companies that work with them, without telling the directors that made the movies, without telling the actors that starred in the movies, without telling the agents that represent the movies. The reason Warner Brothers did it like a cowardly little sniveling jerk in the middle of the night was because they knew everything they were doing it based on, everything they predicated this move on was absolute bullshit. This was not about the fans. This was not because of COVID. It wasn't. Every one of the filmmakers said, hey, we are totally cool pushing our movies off another 8 months to a year. Denis Villeneuve said in his article that he wrote for Variety, I had no problem. I agreed with the move. When Warner Brothers moved my movie that I directed off almost a full year, I was totally in support of that move. This isn't about COVID. This is about Warner Brothers desperately trying to salvage a failed launch of HBO Max to try to catch up with Disney Plus. If they had any honor, They would have sat down and discussed with the interested parties involved. They would have sat down and talked with Legendary Pictures, the company that funded the production of Godzilla vs. Kong, the company that funded the production of Dune. If they had any honor, and this wasn't some backstabbing, thief in the knife, cowardly little jerk move, they would have sat down with the people who actually put up the money for those movies and said, hey, we should talk about what we're going to do with this movie. But they didn't, and there's a reason they didn't. Because they knew they were going to face lawsuits that might stop them from making the announcements, and they thought, like the cowardly little jerks they are, at least in this one particular, and remember, I'm a big fan of Warner Brothers. I have personal friends who are well positioned at Warner Brothers, and I know a couple of them ain't happy with this move either. They backstab the people they're in business with, and don't buy the lie. Don't buy this lie that we did it for the fans. It has nothing to do with that. Don't buy the lie that, oh, you know, in response to this COVID situation. No. That's why that excuse works and is legitimate for why you move the movies. Sure. And there are some movies like Wonder Woman 84 that you've already moved multiple times and has already been delayed by like up to a year already. We just got to get this thing out. I think everybody involved would understand that. But the more I'm hearing from people who work inside of Warner Brothers, and the more I'm hearing from people who work in the industry as a whole, and the more I'm hearing from members of the DGA, I haven't heard from Denis Villeneuve, obviously, but I've heard from people I know who are part of the Directors Guild of America, the more and more of a clear picture that's being painted here. Warner Brothers backstabbed and snuck behind everybody's back to pull a PR move that is now blowing up in their faces. And they double-crossed a lot of people that worked with them in good faith. I mean, that's why you got Timothée Chalamet hosting Saturday Night Live and at the close of the show rocking out a Legendary Pictures sweatshirt. Not a Warner Brothers sweatshirt, a Legendary Pictures. He was sending a very clear message. We're all on the side of Legendary Pictures, who's going to be suing Warner Brothers now. You don't treat people like that. For Warner Brothers to not give a heads up, let alone looping Legendary in, the company that pays for 75% of the production of Dune, to not even loop them into the conversation? Oh, dude, that is a Bush League bullshit move. That is Bush League. That is the move of a rank amateur. Somebody puts up 75% of the money to make that movie, and you don't even loop them into the conversation? You don't give them a heads up that you're thinking about that, and they don't find out about this till the day you announce it to the world? Dude, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started with this I stand with Warner Brothers bullshit. And because listen, I get some people feeling like, oh, I like the idea of being able to watch the movie at home. That's one thing. But this I stand with Warner Brothers bullshit, the way they acted, the underhanded, backstabbing, cowardly little sniveling jerk way they handled it is, no, I'm not a fan of that part. Not a fan of that part at all. That's just my take on it. There's a reason why everybody else in the industry is really pissed off at Warner Brothers right now. And they just treated their partners badly, and it's going to bite them in the ass. It is going to bite them in the ass. Again, Wonder Woman's a different thing because I get it. And there would be some other movies that I would get that too, but that's not what this is about. Don't buy the lie. Do not buy the lie that this was for the fans. No, it wasn't. It's because you're failing with your launch of HBO Max, which I love HBO Max, by the way. If I had to pick between HBO Max and Disney Plus right now today, I'd take HBO Max. I think they're the better service right now today. I think they're fantastic. I'm a huge fan of HBO Max, but they botched their launch. They've fallen way behind Disney Plus. Disney Plus has lapped them already. They have more than twice the number of subscribers that they do already. This was all a desperate attempt to try to catch up with Disney Plus. Don't let anybody try to convince you otherwise. Anyway, that's just my take on it. All right, next up, ZMG ruler rights. I do get why AT&T chose HBO Max as the title instead of Warner Brothers Plus. Warner Brothers isn't as popular a brand as Disney or even HBO. Well, oh yeah, Warner Brothers isn't as popular a brand as Disney or even HBO. The non-WB movies on there too. Disney Plus is Disney owned only. Over under 40%. If 2021 plans flop, AT&T sells Warner Brothers. They are in debt. Well, I would argue that HBO is not a more popular name than Warner Brothers. HBO, I believe, only ever had, but I don't know that they ever had more than 30 something million subscribers. Number of HBO subscribers. Let me just look this up here. 38 million. And that's including HBO Max. Okay? So HBO Max all combined, like if you put it all together, they have 38 million subscribers. That's less than half of the size of Disney Plus. I would contend, while HBO is a recognized name, it is not as recognized or as honored or revered as this century-old staple in Hollywood, Warner Brothers, with all the prestige that it carries. And again, the big problem with naming it HBO Max was it created a lot of initial confusion. Because somebody already had HBO. So what's HBO Max? We got HBO, with HBO Go, we got HBO Now, and now we've got HBO Max. It just created a lot of confusion. Then they botched their launch by not being on Roku or Amazon Fire Stick. They've corrected the Amazon Fire Stick one, and they will correct the Roku one at some point. But they botched their launch with that. Then they were come get HBO Max and watch all the Harry Potter movies. And then within a week or two that HBO Max launched, they lost the Harry Potter movies, so they're not on there anymore. I mean, they did so many things wrong from a marketing point of view. And I think the name of it was one of the problems. And again, HBO Max right now, other than Hulu, HBO Max is probably my favorite streaming service. I mean, in a year, it'll probably be Disney Plus once they start launching all these new properties. But as of right now, I think HBO Max is the gold standard as far as quality content goes. I think they're the best right now, but they have blown a lot. And I really think, maybe not necessarily Warner Brothers Plus, but I don't think the name HBO Max helped their cause. I think it hurt them in the long run. I really do. Anyway, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, "Hey, John, the Demon Slayer movie is about to become the highest grossing movie ever in Japan." That's right. 2 movies in China crossed 400 million domestic and box office since the theaters reopening. Same will happen in USA in 6 months or 1 year maximum. The cinemas will not go anywhere. But that's all assuming something anonymous. See, I believe that if theaters reopen and the movies come out, and we start to, as a culture and a society, we start to manage the pandemic, and we see these numbers drop way down and the number of vaccinations going way up, I completely agree with you. I completely agree that the theaters will go nowhere, that people will flock to the movie theaters again if all those, boxes are checked. Absolutely. Here's the problem. Are movies going to be coming out for theaters to show? That's always been the big problem. Now, I love that Disney has announced a number of their films going straight to theaters. I love that. That's great. But I also have a little bit of I'll believe it when I see it ism. Because remember, it wasn't that long ago that they said, oh no, Soul is going to theaters. And then they decided to make it a Disney Plus release. And I get it. I have no problem with that. But all I'm saying is I have a certain level in trust that they'll actually put these movies in theaters, but not a high level of trust that they will. Warner Brothers is saying that they're not going to do any sort of theatrical window. They'll put them in movie theaters, but they're also going to be on HBO Max on the same day. That's going to make the movie theaters make minimum 30% less than they would have otherwise. And because movie theaters margins are so small, you suddenly take away 30% of the business. That's the difference between a movie theater making money and a movie theater going out of business. So will there be premium theatrical exclusive movies coming out for this scenario you're talking about to come to fruition? And I'm not sure. If they do, and they check all those boxes. Pandemic is starting to become managed. Studios actually put out movies that are going to be theatrical exclusives for 3 months. If all that happens, I completely agree. You will see a massive resurgence in the movie theaters. I believe that. The problem is I'm not convinced that all those boxes will be checked. I hope they are. I'll keep my fingers crossed that they are. Maybe I'm just being overly pessimistic, but I have my doubts. So here's hoping. I just have my doubts. All right. Final question of the day. And then we'll pick up with the rest of them on tomorrow's John Campea Show. Angry Ogre writes, "Hey, John, you mentioned that Vader/Anakin showing up in the Obi-Wan series would break canon. Yes. Isn't that only the case if you assume that they ever meet? That's true. If we don't yet know the role for Vader in these series, so it could all still make sense." You know what? That is an excellent point, Angry Ogre. That's an excellent point. Although... Okay, so I don't like the idea, although I'm going to look forward to seeing it too, but the thing that bothers me about Anakin coming back for the Obi-Wan series is it breaks canon. The clear implied message in both the original films and in the prequels was that Obi-Wan and Anakin's battle at Mustafar was the last time they see each other before the events of A New Hope. That was clearly the implied message of those movies. Now, you can play a game of semantics. Say, well, if you say this way and this and A to the hypotenuse, then maybe you could say they meet again and it doesn't break canon. Yeah, if you want to play a game of semantics, you can do that. But the reality is they're breaking canon. Maybe, as you were pointing out, Angry Ogre, this is a good point to raise. There are shows where you have two significant characters that never actually come across each other's path. And they're never actually in a scene together. That happens in TV shows all the time. The problem with that, though, is that Ewan McGregor was doing an interview about the new Obi-Wan series after the Disney announcements. And he said, one of the greatest things about doing this is I get to reunite with Hayden Christensen. That sort of implies that they will be working together on screen. Now, look, again, I get over the whole... they're breaking canon thing because it's an announcement that made a lot of people happy. And at the end of the day, what's the purpose of movies if not to bring joy to people? And this announcement brought a lot of joy to people. So I'm on board. I'm on board, even though it breaks canon. But yeah, what you're bringing up would be a totally legitimate thing, except for the fact that Ewan McGregor has already said, the best part about this is I get to work with Hayden Christensen again. That kind of implies that they will be working together on screen. And that's fine. It's going to make a lot of people happy, so it's all good. All right, guys, listen. For everybody from Adam UK friend and Hey Ho and the Wakandan Forever, do not worry, guys. We're going to start off tomorrow's John Campea Show with your questions. Once we get into the live questions part of the show, we're going to start off with yours, and we'll make sure we get through all the questions there tomorrow. All right, guys. That'll do it for this installment of the companion video. Thanks for hanging out with us here for this evening. A special thank you to all you guys who sent in those live questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, because you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that. All right, guys, don't forget to do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.